So, hello, good evening, folks. Welcome to this live stream number 22, and a happy new year to you all. Also, a happy now year, being here now. That's what all the streams are about. I'll just do a few shout outs to people I've seen come on stream. There's probably others as well. But I can see Shunyam, Lynn, Dawn, Phil, Andy, and Anne. And I know there's a good few other folk. So if your name hasn't been mentioned, you're very welcome as well. And also, for those who are maybe watching on catch up. So yeah, welcome to you all. The reason I always ask about the harp is that one or two times the computers, as I've been updating to the new machine, moved the location of the harp file. So I just want to make sure that it stayed in the same place this time, and it clearly has. So that's good. So yeah, I hope you all had a great Christmas. For those of you who celebrate Christmas, certainly did here. Very nice family time. And yeah, 2019 is with us and it's moving along already. Lots of things unfolding, and a quick hello to Debbie, who's just come on stream as well. So yeah, tonight's stream, as I've said in the stuff that I've shared, is called Resolution or Realization. Resolution or realization. Just felt very appropriate. A hi to Lee, who's just come on, to talk about that, because certainly for some time now, you know, people have sort of focused on this idea of New Year's resolutions, and the kind of impulse from within, from the silence, was just to talk about that a little bit, and whether that's really a good thing for you or not. And I'm going to start by saying, really, from the perspective of where we're coming from in self-realization, actually the highest resolution is self-realization. And I decided to have a look at the etymology, as I felt the impulse to talk about resolution or realization. Hi Asha, and hi Leotilda, by the way. And etymology, the root of the word, where does the word come from? And it's actually, when you look at the root of that word, what it originally was pointing to was actually a few things. I've just jotted them down here just to make sure I get them accurate. It's actually about a loosening or a release or a reducing to something simpler. And then as the word developed over the years, the idea of its use in optics, you know, higher and higher resolutions like you get with HD TVs and so forth, that kind of started to come in. And it was around about the 1780s, it said in the etymology, that the idea of a New Year's resolution started to come in. And the words it used, which made me laugh at the time, was that they were often pious in nature. Obviously things have moved on a little bit in a few hundred years, but this whole thing with New Year's resolutions, from the perspective of self-realization, you know, they're focusing on some future state, you know, some desire, some goal, some personal achievement, some idealized future somehow, when things will somehow be better. Now, from the perspective of self-realization, this is ultimately always going to cause suffering, because what that's doing is placing your happiness based on some future state. I will be happy when X, Y, or Z is achieved. And that's not where happiness or true joy is. True joy is here now, and you are it. The perfume, the natural essence of the silence, the infinite silence, is joy, is peace, is grace, is love. That's the natural flowing essence. And yet society conditions everybody into this idea of goals, achievements, this idealized picture of what, life should look like. And it's always some state in the future. Always some future state. And this kind of approach to life is the cause of suffering, when actually the joy, the truth, the peace of who you are is actually here now. You see, when it comes to self-realization, listen carefully to this. You, and I'm talking about the true you here now, are already that which you seek. You, the true you, are already that which you truly seek. That's the fundamental simplicity of self-realization. And this true you isn't a person. It's not a thing. It's not some future goal. It's actually that which you are. It's the infinite silence I talk a lot about. And the thing about the infinite is that it's infinite, which means there's nothing outside of it. So all of this experiential field that we experience in the body, this is all contained within the infinite, and therefore you can't be separate from that. So the simplicity of self-realization, as it unfolds or flowers in your form, the realization is simply this, that actually you have been this all along, and you have never not been it. And this is why when that flowers, many people will laugh at that point, because they've been looking outside of you in some future achievement, some future goal, or I do this course or that course, or read this book, or achieve that, or go to this place. I'll be happy, when actually it was here all along. All along. And that's why on the wisdom cards that many of you have, that I hand out at many of the events, there's these words. It's about realizing, not seeking. Realizing, not seeking. The search for truth, the search for happiness, the search for joy becomes an end in itself and creates a cycle of suffering, because it's always some future goal. You may be happy at some, say, happy turn of events, but that high soon passes and ego mind comes in and then hits you with something else. So actually it wasn't really a success. You were suffering to achieve that brief high, and then it very quickly passes. Whereas what we're talking about here is a permanent state, or stateless state, of silence. And from this, the flower, the essence, the perfume of it is joy. Some New Year's resolutions in the case, a better me. Who is this better me? Who is this better me? It's just some fictitious idea some belief that I will be better when, or I will be happy when. This that I'm talking about, this infinite silence, you are that. And it's not personal. And yet it is expressed in infinite variety, in this form, in your form, in the tree, in the car, in the road, in the stars, in the sky, in the wind, in the water. All of it here now. This better you that you've been looking for has been here all along. It's the infinite, the true non-personal essence. And when your trust in this is complete and total, then it will be seen, it will flower, it will be realized. It won't be something that you have to find. You'll realize it's already here. It won't be something that you have to seek. You'll realize that it was already here. And this is one reason why in spiritual teachings you'll often hear the phrase from a truly realized being. They'll say, call off the search. Call off the search. This better you you're looking for, you're never going to find. You're never going to find that better you. What you have to do is drop that as an idea, as a belief that I'll be happy when, and be open to the possibility that actually, in the non-personal sense, you are already this. Drop the personhood, drop the ego. Personhood and ego are exactly the same thing. Personhood and ego are exactly the same thing. By dropping the layers of personhood, the armor of personhood, the protection of personhood, stripping that back completely, what's left but nothing, or no thing more accurately. And that no thing, it turns out, is infinite. You see, we're so used to the idea of things. Here's a nice thing, this singing bowl here. It has a form, it has shape, it makes a nice ding when I tap it, but it has limited function. No thing, on the other hand, is limitless. It's unbounded, it's beyond time, and it's beyond space. Even this beautiful singing bowl will gradually disintegrate into nothing. And you know, even modern physics says that the entire physical universe will gradually dissolve into this nothingness state. It just appears to take billions of years, but in the spiritual context, it's actually here now. And it's never not been here. And you, my friends, have always been it. So this idea of a New Year's resolution for the better me, this kind of idealized state of a life, of achieving this, realizing, doing that, whatever, having this goal that's going to make you happy, it's not. It is fundamentally flawed. It doesn't mean that certain things don't happen in your life and you sort of get the urge from within and inspiration from within. It would be really nice too, but don't get attached to the idea. Don't identify yourself. Don't base your happiness on it. Instead, actually know that your true happiness, your true joy is already here. And then you can enjoy the process of the flowering. And if an event occurs, that's great. But if it doesn't, it's also great. It doesn't matter to you. It's just the flow of existence. I'm just going to have a quick look at the screen here just to see if there's any comments that are coming up or questions. So what's Dawn saying? Yes, there is now here. The silence is not. Lol, so simple really. It's infinite. How can there be anything other than it? Exactly, Dawn. And where could one go or be? Thank you, thank you. Actually, that reminds me, Dawn, the way you've expressed that of somebody, a friend, Dee's normally comes on the stream. She actually shared a really excellent short video by another realised being, Rupert Spira. And the context of his video, which was about 7 or 10 minutes long, was this idea the truth of the fact is, I never go anywhere. I never go anywhere. And this I he was talking about is the infinite I. It's only mind that believes it's travelling through time and space. Actually, the truth of you is here now. So do have a look at that one. Rupert Spira, I Never Go Anywhere. It's a really interesting short little video. It's very good to try to kind of look a little bit further at what I've been saying here. Right, what's Dawn saying? In marinating recently, the awareness of openness has been very profound. The silence is infinitely and absolutely open. Exactly. The openness is experienced as complete and utter relaxation. For sure, in the form, that's how it would be. There would be this sense of, you know what? I've been this all along. What was I worrying about? What was I looking for? What was I searching for? What I was searching for was already here. And I am it, in the non-personal sense. And just picking up on Sandy's comment there, searching is like an unquenchable thirst. Exactly, Sandy. Ego is never satisfied. Once some state has been reached, it's then looking for the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. It's never satisfied. This doesn't mean that there isn't a progression and flow through life, but when you identify yourself with that, with the search, and base happiness on it and your well-being upon it, then you're going to suffer. And that's why the Buddha said life is suffering. It's the identified life, this continuous searching, this continuous battle that's going on with ego, of either striving to be better or keeping itself small or dominating things, all the tactics of ego. So happiness is not a goal. Joy is not a goal. Peace is not a goal. It's actually the natural perfume of that which you already are. Listen to that deeply. It's the natural perfume of that which you already are. One of the things I like to say about this is truth is simple. Ego is complicated. Truth is simple. Ego is complicated. What could be simpler than you are this? The true you is this now. What could be more complicated than ego's idea of who it thinks you are? this story, about this experience in this form. You're this now. It's simple. It's this simple. So simple that ego mind goes, it can't be this simple. I have news. It is. You are that. You are it. Call off the search. Call off the search. Instead, be open to the truth of the matter, that infinite realized self is already that which you are. Drop the beliefs totally, utterly, completely, and it will inevitably flower. The purpose of your life is a purposeless one in the sense that you are already this. The opportunity of the life in this body is to realize that experientially. And this realization, it turns out, is inevitable. It may happen in this body, or it may happen in another. But the realization is ultimately inevitable. And why is that? It's because you are already it. And the universe will always comes back to itself. Always comes back to itself. Where else can it go? What is outside the infinite? Nothing. So the greatest choice, the highest gift, is to open yourself to that possibility that you're that now. Another insight I would like to offer you that I often offer at the events is this. People talk a lot about spiritual growth or personal growth. But actually, listen to this. Spiritual growth is not possible. Self-realization is natural. Spiritual growth is not possible. Self-realization is natural. Framed it deliberately that way to take the idea of away from some goal to be achieved. Self-realization is not an achievement. It's not also for some special few people. It's actually that which you already are. That's why I'm saying no growth necessary. You're already this. The trick, so to speak, is dropping everything that you are not. The ego mind, the beliefs around that. The fundamental block to self-realization is the belief you're not that already. Listen to that carefully. The fundamental block to self-realization is the belief that you're not that already. This one belief, if dropped completely, unequivocally, is inevitably going to lead to the realization of that which is here. It's that simple. It's that simple. It took me years to realize that. When the realization flowered, it's very amusing. But it is that simple, folk. And it's nothing to do with believing what I'm saying here. Because truth is an experience, not a belief. And I also like to put it this way: truth is unbelievable. Truth is unbelievable. And what I mean by that is that it doesn't require belief. A belief is something that you've not experienced, and therefore the idea of belief is necessary. Drop the belief that you're not that. The realization flowers. Just looking at Dawn's comment, you just said, just because there aren't any more goals doesn't mean things don't get done. Can you elaborate more on the difference, yes, between action and activity like Osho? This is a very important question. So what Dawn's referring to there is a book I recommended to her called Tantra, the Supreme Understanding. And one of the issues explored in there is the difference between activity and action. Now, activity is fundamentally ego's state. It is always busy. It is busyness. It is a constant should, must, ought to, striving, reaching, stretching type energy for this desired future state. I'll be happy when. And it's quite a heavy energy, a contracted energy. It's a kind of pushing type energy that makes life a struggle. It's that struggling, that striving, that reaching. That's activity. That's the nature of ego, always stretching, always striving. The unquenchable thirst of ego. Action, on the other hand, is quite different. Very different. What we're talking about then, when we're talking about action, is so one is in this stillness place. There's an inspiration. Do you know the word inspiration is used in medical terms for breath? It comes from within. The breath of life. Inspiration. That energy is light, uplifting, inviting, and certainly on its first awareness, there's likely to be a felt sense of joy in the art. This inspiration to act in some way, often surprising in its nature. Inspiration calls for action, not activity. Action thus is very different in its essence than activity. And following through on the inspiration that's calling for action without getting attached to it or identified with it, very important, then this is how the flow occurs, and this is how things truly get done, and it acts more harmoniously, much more flowingly. And you'll find acting from that place is synchronistic. We talked about synchronicity on the last stream, I think. It will be synchronistic if one is following it from the heart space, from that inspiration. What can often happen though, just to kind of ego likes to muddy the waters. So the inspiration comes, it's light, it's uplifting, it's inviting. There's a sense of a really positive action to flow from it. And then ego mind creeps up from you and says, but Dawn, what about this? What about the other? But you're not good enough to do that, or but you'll never be able to carry out that action. Now what's happening here is that ego has suddenly got in on the act, and it's going to make you fearful. What this is the blocks in the way of you realizing that heart call energetically. So when that happens, so the inspiration has come, maybe day later, hours later, or a week later, fear, ego starts to come in to try to prevent you from this course of action, this inspired action. What this is an invitation to release the block. It's not to not pursue the action, it's to release the block, to feel the feeling, to witness it and let it pass. Live stream 11. Again. Live stream 11. Again. So this is the vast difference between activity and action. What you're looking for in life is inspired action, not a continuous stream of activity, which is what we fill our lives with. No, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for inspired action. And in that place of stillness, you will pass through the day with the presence and the awareness still always in and as that essence, that state, that stateless state. And the right and proper inspired actions will just flow naturally. And yet, because you're not attached to or identified with it, even the inspired action, don't get attached to that, then all the blockages are dissolved and it will flow much more gracefully. So let me just patch up on the comments here, because there's been quite a few coming in. Yeah, so yeah, okay, I can see that you're up okay with that, Dawn. Yeah, good. I'm glad you're happy with that. A friend said recently she called it the hungry ghost, the feeling, the grasping, the ego. Yeah, hungry ghost. That's a good way of putting it. That is a good way of putting it. What's Lee saying? I'm feeling in an inactive phase, and the amount of ego thoughts coming in is phenomenal. Lol. I am observing though, sometimes it's pulling me in. Then I realize again, thank you for the reminder. Good, I'm glad that's been useful for you, Lee. There are phases in, in the flowering of the realization that there are, shall we say, quieter phases, or people sometimes talk about being in some kind of void. And I always say good when I hear that, because these are the times that you're need to be still and allow yourself to integrate. Just watch, just wait, observe what ego mind is doing, but do not become it. Witness it. It will pass, and then the inspiration flowers. Yeah, okay, Dawn, I'm glad you see that. So synchronicity and action go hand in hand. Exactly. What else? What could be more perfect? That's the way it works. Yeah, okay, Lynn, I've said yours already. Specific inspiration equals specific action, not continuous activity. Exactly that. Debbie, this is how I've been feeling the last few 2 days. I don't need to anything, but I need to let go, strip away all the crap. But this is where I get stuck. What to let go of. Okay, so that's, you're doing great in that sentence there, Debbie. And then in the last bit, ego comes in and asks a question. What is it to let go of? So that in that last few words there, that's kind of ego trying to get, but how do I do this? How do I do, what is it I need to let go of? The answer to this is to be still. Not try to second guess it, not try to work out a path. You will never realize the self coming at it from the mind space. It's in the silence, in the stillness. So remain in the stillness, remain in the silence, get into the meditation, and that will show you that which is no longer serving you. You witness that from the space of the silence, and it passes. Live stream 11. Debbie, live stream 11. No, not all the comments are yours, Dawn. There's a couple from Lee and Debbie, so don't worry. I think people tend to love your comments anyway, but yeah, do get stuck in, folks. So hopefully that helps you, Debbie. Yeah, don't try and second guess. Listen, listen, listen. Okay, so let me know if there's anything more that you need on that, Debbie, please. Yeah, no, absolutely agree with Lynn there. Just keep commenting if you want. Yeah, see, there you go. A few confirmations that people like your comments. You have as I said to you before, a fine intellect, Dawn, and so you see things very quickly. And so the questions are useful because what it allows us to do when you look at a specific facet of it, it allows me to come at it from another angle for you and thus expand the awareness. And this is why in really most of the ancient spiritual traditions, you get a combination of meditation in the silence and spiritual inquiry. It's the integration of these two, the questions, in other words. It's the integration of these two that lift the layers of misunderstanding, because fundamentally that's where ego comes from, a case of mistaken identity. Listen to that carefully. That's where ego comes from, a case of mistaken identity. Ego mind thinks it's the body mind and its belief system. This is the fundamental case of mistaken identity, when in truth, it's always been the silence. And that's where all the misunderstanding, all the confusion in life comes from, this one fundamental error. Like Shakespeare's play, The Comedy of Errors. The fundamental error of life is to think you're the body-mind, when you're not that. The body is a gift to experience life. Without it, you would not have physical experience. But you're not the body. You're before all of that. What's Sandy saying? Thanks for bringing up especially the void. I jump back out, or ego mind does. I haven't been observing. It's removing that ego block I now feel able to do. Good. So this void thing can occur, and it's actually a very good place to be, as I said, because this stillness, it's a letting go. It's also an integration phase. Just want to pick up on something you've said there, though, Sandy. I now feel able to do. Just be a little bit careful. There's a subtlety of ego there. Because it turns out this letting go, although it sounds like an action, it isn't. It sounds like an action, but it isn't. What do I mean by that? I mean that the letting go is simply an allowing, a witnessing, and that's not an action. The witnessing and the allowing is coming from placing one's trust in and as the silence. So it turns out it's an allowing. Sometimes people ask, how did it, what did you do? How did you do it? And self-realization isn't something that is done. I'm glad that you see that, Sandy. It's an important subtlety. Really important subtlety. Self-realization is not a doing. It's an allowing, it's an accepting, it's an embracing of that which you already are. Good. What's Dawn saying? Samely, all of this is opposite to what I've learned acquired up to now. Opposite to what ego acquired is exactly. Yeah. And that all comes from the conditioning of the body-mind function, ego, body-mind. And it's always been here, the silence itself. And Dawn, you're right. So the silence doesn't need anything. You've just reminded me, Dawn, with the way you've expressed this. I'm not sure if it's on the wisdom cards or somewhere else it's written down. But it's this. Truth asks nothing. Ego asks for your life. Let me say that again. Truth asks nothing. Ego asks for your life. What does that mean? It means that truth, ultimate truth, the infinite silence, is infinite. What can be added to the infinite? Nothing. What can be taken away from the infinite? Nothing. What does the infinite need? Nothing. It is untouched, unmoved, absolute perfection of knowingness and awareness of itself as itself. Truth asks nothing. That's why it asks nothing. Ego, on the other hand, thinks and believes it's body-mind, and it thinks and believes it needs stuff. It needs things. And this desire is insatiable. Insatiable, this unquenchable thirst. And ultimately, ego goes on a self-destruct path because it is in this continuous striving and searching. The energy gets so dense, so heavy, so striving, so reaching, that it goes into this sense of, I can't cope with this anymore. And it implodes. It collapses. And if it collapses completely, what's left is the silence. This is what happened to Eckhart Tolle, by the way, if you've read his book. So what's Lee saying? Yes, Dawn, that's what I've been finding more difficult recently. It's like there's been a constant battle between what I believe is the truth and what others have taught me. I like that. So so I'm glad that you're seeing this, Lee, but just to want to pick up something there, just some subtleties in your wording. You see, truth doesn't require belief. I know what you're pointing at, and I don't think you meant it that way, but truth just is. Truth just is. It's an experience, not a belief. So truth is more of a knowing. When you trust in the highest truth, I often ask, what is the highest form of trust? You don't need to answer that. It turns out that the highest form of trust is not having to trust at all. Listen to that carefully. The highest form of trust is not having to trust at all. What does that mean? It means it's a knowing. You know. You know. I realise that you meant it the other way, Lee, but I'm saying this for everybody else's benefit. You see, ultimately, there's nothing you can learn either about ultimate spiritual truth. It may appear things that I'm saying here, or let's say the Buddha. I went to a Buddhist temple recently. I hadn't been to one, but I'd heard about this place for a while and thought, we'll just go there. And of course, I had sort of vaguely aware of this from the past, but it was said on that day, just on a visitor's basis, just to kind of see the place. The Buddha had, I think it was 84,000 teachings. Now, ego mind would grasp that and think, well, I'm never going to realize the self until I've explored and understood these 84,000 teachings. And I can tell you for free, it's not going to work. You don't need to know those 84,000 teachings. There are no teachings. The Buddha had no teachings. All those were signposts or pointings to the fact that it was already here. And you don't need to believe me on that, by the way. You can't learn ultimate truth. You can only realize it. You can't learn ultimate truth. You can only realize it. And when it is realized, then the knowing comes. It's automatic. Because one is emptied out of all of the teachings, the ideas, the concepts, the beliefs. One is completely empty. And in that emptiness pours the wisdom of the entire universe at your fingertips, so to speak, or your tongue tip even. So that's part and parcel of the realization. So when I'm answering your questions here, it's not like, oh yeah, what was that? It's not like that. It's automatically obvious where the problem lies, because one is always listening from within and then just articulating where the misunderstanding lies. Did you hear how I said that? Where the misunderstanding lies. Not only lies as in lay down or rests, but lies because it is a lie about you. It's an untruth about you. You're an idiot. Simples. Truth is simple. Ego is complicated. You are already that which you truly seek. That which you truly seek, you already are. It's infinite and non-personal. So simple. So don't make self-realization into a goal. Don't create a goal of this idea of this better me. Instead, be completely open to the highest truth that actually I, in the non-personal sense, the infinite I, am already this. Couple that with the deep inner listening. And what these two elements, shall we say, will do in combination is show you where you're going wrong. It will bring up to the surface the crap, the misunderstandings. You watch that in the knowingness that you're not that. Even if it's lots of fear, angst, anxiety, emotions, you let all that flow, you feel it, you do not run away from it. Live stream 11 again. And as that is watched in the knowingness, you are the silence. It passes. And when the apparent time is ripe, the realization flowers. So simple. So realization, again, as to repeat, is not a doing, it's an allowing. It's a realizing, not seeking. It's a seeing, not looking. It's a finding, not searching. Could it be so simple? Yes. Nothing simpler in the universe. What's done? Yes, inner listening. That's similar to when you said about altering the polarity from projecting, transmitting to receiving, listening. Yes, exactly. So what Dawn's talking about there, I think I wrote a short piece a while back. Oh no, a year or two back now, thinking about it when that one was first written. It's about when you switch from transmit to the receiving, the listening, then you're on the right track. Most of us are on transmit. This striving, this reaching, this activity, this asking. Instead, go to receive. Go to receive. And as one receives, what you'll find is actually you receive the self, you recognize, you realize the self. And then that automatically radiates from your beingness. No effort required. So what's good? Thank you, Don. I'm glad that it helped you move into the emptiness. What's Sandy saying? Yes, I hadn't been aware. That's what I've been doing, making it a doing, not a lying. So that's really important then for you, Sandy. That is a really important awareness. And if you listened, I know I keep on banging on about live stream 11, but if you listen to live stream 11 again now, I would hazard a guess you'll find yet another level of awareness in it. You know, don't just watch these streams once, folks. Come back to them maybe, you know, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month later. Listen to it again. If you've been continuing to meditate, I'll guarantee you that a week, 2 weeks, a month later, or whatever, you'll hear something, realize something that you didn't hear before. Oh my gosh, didn't realize that was said. I now understand that. I now see that. Yeah, like peeling the onion. Yeah. Good. What's Dawn saying? So yeah, so Andy's recommending live stream 11. Thank you very much for Andy. What's Dawn saying? I watched the last live stream. We did 21 over and over. The meditation was so powerful. Good. So yeah, if you're finding that, then do use these. You know, this is not just a once thing. And the reason that's, apart from the fact that you'll hear things you never heard the first time and the deepening is taking place, just think how long you've been in the body and how much things have been repeated to lead to the conditioning that you've experienced to date. So a part of the flowering is deconditioning you. And this is why people traditionally went to an ashram in India and sat there for months after months, day after day, listening to the master, sat in the silence, repeatedly answering really fundamentally what is the same question asked a million different ways. That combination deconditions you. It strips back the layers of the onion, and what's left is the essence. So this is why the whole thing about spiritual practice becomes ultimately the practiceless practice. Somebody once asked me at an event, how often should I practice this? It was actually in reference to what I talk about in Livestream 11. How often should I practice this? Listen carefully to this answer, folks. Until you don't have to. Until you don't have to. You become the living meditation, the living silence. Practice until you don't have to. It becomes effortless grace. So that turns out the purpose of all spiritual practice is so you don't have to. What did I say there? The purpose of all spiritual practice is so you don't have to. Don't have to what? Practice at being who you really are. Oh my gosh. I was already that. What are we saying here now? Yeah, so very profound. Had a number of things come up today. Trust, self-worth, values, seeing it others reflected back at me. Found myself getting sucked into ego chatter. Needed tonight to get grounded. So this is why, another reason why regular meditation practice is so important, because the more that you do that, the more that you give yourself that time, the less likely you're going to be triggered, the less likely you're going to be off center. Keep going with the meditation. Hence the title of the book. Yes, it's actually The Living Soul, Life as Embodied Silence. Emphasis on the as, as you put it there, Dawn. Yeah, life as embodied silence. And as I keep on saying, folks, you're already this. You just forgot. You just forgot. You're already this living soul. Soul. Living soul. Life as embodied silence. There's nothing you can do about that, you know. You're that. And there's nothing you have to do about it. Simply trust in that highest truth. Be open, listen. It will flower. Drop. And the dropping is not an action, remember, it's an allowing. Good, I'm glad it's speaking to you, folks. Glad it's speaking to you. We've been going for about an hour. So let me just finish off. The highest resolution is self-realization. And the great news is You're an idiot. In the non-personal, infinite silence way. Bingo. Trust, 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 trust. Trust a bit more, and then trust a bit more still, and keep on trusting that you're that. Listen, 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 listen to your heart, and keep on listening, and then listen a bit more, and then keep on listening, and keep on listening. Watch the stuff. Fall away. Yon. Hi, Yon. Yeah, negative talk about it. Never heard of it. Research. So what has it done for you? Yeah, what Yon's saying there is not the intention. So you need to understand it can get, as Yon's pointing out there, it can get a bad press, ego. That's not the intention, though, of what I'm saying. You need to listen beyond that. Turns out the fundamental role of ego is to bring you back to who you are. That's a fundamental role. However, if you go with listening to it, you'll suffer. But if you see it's an illusion, it falls away. This is what Yon is saying. So, just to reassure you, Yon. So, he's also correct. So, ego is in a way good, and this is also true. So, I'm not intending to give ego a bad press. If that's what you're taking away, then that's not the intention. So, in this sense, bringing you back to yourself. But if you go with ego's meanderings, then you will suffer. But if you see, it's illusory, then the realization will flower. And it is a good illusion, because we wouldn't be able to create the experience of life in the physical. You know, I sometimes repeat this story. I don't know if it's actually true of the person concerned. I heard it in relation to Ramana Maharshi. It is an illusion, correct? And somebody was reported to have asked whether it was Ramana Maharshi or not. It doesn't really matter. The moral or the pointing in the story is the accurate bit. And yeah, let's say this question was asked, how much ego does one need? And the response was just enough to cross the road safely. What that is saying is simply, you know, for the purposes of having a physical body, it's a good idea when you're crossing your road to consider yourself separate from the cars and look right, look left, and cross the road. Well, that's as far as it goes. That's a bit like the grit, yes. Yeah. So, yeah. Thanks for sharing those, John. It helps clarify those other things. So, yeah, it does have this fundamental role. I'm actually going to cover that in, it's actually covered in the book. So, yeah, it is a tool, exactly. It is a tool. But if you don't see its illusory nature and don't see its tool nature, and then you start following it as if it's your reality, well, then you're going to suffer. So some great input there from Jon, but Jon and I know each other very well. So he knows where I'm coming from. Good. Enough talking, I think, unless there's any other questions. Exactly, Dawn. Yeah, that's the one I shared with you recently. So let's have a meditation to finish off. If everyone listens, and we can come back to any questions after that. Okay, so we're good. So let's get ourselves comfortable, whether you're sitting down or lying down. And just simply close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, just simply first bring your attention to your body. Just resting your attention there. And as your attention rests on the body, simply being open to the experience of spheres of light. The pure universal state I am, non-personal I am, universal beingness. And as your attention rests on this aliveness, this beingness that's non-personal, know now that it is seen or sensed from the deeper essence that is infinite silence. So simply allow your attention to merge with, melt into, and as the silence. Everything else dissolving. Into and as this silence. Just simply resting in and as this silent stillness. This boundlessness. Beyond time. beyond space. Eternal essence. Simply allowing everything else to go now, just watching silently any phenomena. Any sensations, emotions, feelings, just silently observing. Resting in and as the silence. Nothing else matters now. Just this. Silence. Infinite silence. Nothing else matters now. Just this here, now. Here you are. The true you. Always here as this silence. All else dissolves into and as this silence. All I truly know is silence. In silence, you will realize your truth. In truth, you will realize You are silence. The isness, the absolute. Here it is. The non-personal essence, infinite, silence, all that I am is all that am I. The infinite I of infinite silence. Here it is. Now ever present. Presence. Nowhere to go. Just now. Here. infinite silence. It simply is here, now. And you, the true, non-personal you, are it. So in a moment, folks, I'll ring the singing bowl 3 times to just keep your attention rested in and as the silence. And I'll just put the harp music on for a few moments, just gently bringing yourself back to the room, noticing the body, the chair. Enjoy the harp. Keep your attention rested in and as the silence. And I'll be back in a few moments. Just enjoy the harp, and we'll just see if there's any other comments or questions. I can see a couple already. Back in a few moments. Good. So welcome back, folks. There's just a few comments there which I'll have to scroll down on my phone to see because there's too many on this screen here now. So Yon, what's Yon saying? Yon saying infinite silence vibrates in the heart and mind becomes totally silent, as it should be. Thank you, Philip. You're very welcome, Yon, but I know that you know this anyway. Wonderful. I don't know if I've said this before, maybe I have on one of the streams, but the actual term infinite silence didn't come from here, so to speak. It came from within. It was a term the silence chose to reference, if you like, itself. And so when you listen deeply to that, it carries, shall we say, the energetic signature or pointing to the silence. So that's what Jon has experienced there. But I would expect Jon to experience that anyway. D, just tuned in for the meditation, which was perfect. A wonderful meditation. Getting deeper and deeper in my marinading with this. It's beautiful. My inner smile is getting stronger and broader. Excellent, D. I'm delighted to hear that. Wonderful. Keep marinading in and as the silence. As I've said before, I am sure silence, the universal solvent. Dawn, what's Dawn saying? Beautiful, thank you, Philip. During the marinading, like just then, I keep getting the awareness of the highest truth of all phenomena, thoughts, sensations, etc. is the silence. It is imbued in everything. Yeah. Yeah, good to watch later, D. We've had some good questions and some good sharing. So yeah, be good for you to catch up and watch. Tracy, absolutely wonderful, Philip. Once again, love always. You're very, very welcome. As always, Tracy. And for you as well, Lois, very welcome. What's Dawn's also saying? Every apparent thing dissolves into and is realized to be source, infinite silence. All movement is simply rest. It is rest as not rest, which are the same indeed. Hopefully you all understand that the kind of apparent opposites collapse into the silence. Welcome, Sandy. What's Lynn? As usual during the meditation, torso and also icy hands, icy feet become gently warm. My own personal heater. Yeah, nice one. Yeah, welcome, Leotilda. So good. Just want to pick up one final thing. If there's any other questions that anyone wants to ask, we can do that. But just before we close, just reinforcing some of the things that Jon was raising there, which was important stuff, by the way. One of the things that's important to understand is truth has no judgment. Truth has no judgment. So one could get the impression with the stuff I'm sharing about kind of the ego it's not a judgment. It's an observation of how the identification with ego creates suffering. But the fundamental role of allowing an identity in the form is okay. It's when we start to get to the point of identifying with the story and the beliefs and then reinforcing it and then identifying it. This is where the problem is. So truth has no judgment. Therefore, there's no judgment about ego either. This is important. So Jon was correct to just raise that into your consciousness and awareness. We're not beating ego up, we're embracing the silence, and that automatically dissolves all of the baggage that's been built around it, the identity baggage, the belief baggage, the attachment baggage. And in that way, all of the nonsense, so to speak, all of the illusion gets dissolved. The illusory ego gets dissolved, and what's left is truth. So just reinforcing. So thank you, Jon, for bringing that up, because it could be easily misunderstood. So I'm glad he did that, but I would have expected that anyway. Wonderful. Anything else from anybody else before we close? Resolution or realization? I started off with that. The highest resolution, the greatest definition, self-realization. Just a couple of other things, just to see if there's any other stuff going to come up. For those of you in the Manchester area, I'm actually going to go, I'm at the monastery this weekend, this Sunday, and next weekend. This Sunday I'm going to a screening of a film called Crazy Wise by a guy called Phil Borge. And I'm going because a lot of it's to do with spiritual awakening and the experiences that people have, and it's useful to kind of explore that. And I think he's coming at it from a kind of shamanic culture, indigenous cultures anyway, and it sort of struck me that it would be useful to sort of do that and explore that, because there may be some people there who would also benefit from understanding. So I'm going to go there this Sunday just as an observer, but also at the monastery Sunday the 13th of January for the next part of the self-realization program, and that runs from 11:30 till 1600, 4 o'clock. So that's the 13th of January. It's an open program, so you're welcome to come to that. So yeah, blessings to you all. I've seen that from Lee, Dawn, Lois, Jon, love to you as also. Yeah, it is also the health and well-being this Sunday at the monastery, Dawn. I'm not sure where the screening, which room it's going to be in. I think they've got a full booking of 70 people. So could be in the learning space, possibly, not sure. We'll find out when we get there. Lynn, you're welcome. Lee, yes, love to you as well. Yeah, and obviously, yeah, I think you said you're coming to the self-realization day on the 13th. So yeah, unless there's any other questions, folks. Excuse me. Oh, it's going to be in the welcome wing. Thanks for that, Lois. Yeah, that would make sense. It's quite a lot of people, that, isn't it? Over 100. Wow. Oh, Wendy was thinking of coming, Lois, and I think she found that the space was booked up. So I don't know if there's a space for her. Perhaps you could let me know separately. Anyway, yeah, beyond the entrance, Dawn, is the welcome wing, the bit where you go in, that new bit. So yeah, I think, so unless there's any other questions, I think we're pretty much there, folks. So thank you very much. We've been going nearly an hour and 40 minutes. It's a bit longer than I anticipated. I'm planning to do the next stream in 2 weeks' time. So it's is it the 4th of January today? Yeah, 4th of January, I think it is. So that will be the 18th of January. I don't have a theme yet. Well, actually, I might have a theme, but there's various insights being written down at the moment, and it's a question of which one I'm going to focus on. But 18th of January, same time, same place. And as the two Ronnies said, and it's good night from me, and it's good night from him. Good night. I'll leave you with the harp, folks. Thank you very much all for attending.